Right. Well, it is just after 9 o'clock, so I think it's right to start. First of all, a huge welcome. My name is Lindsay MacDonald. I will introduce myself in a little bit more detail in a moment, but just first a couple of public safety announcements. So just so you're aware, we are recording the session and we'll send out to you a private link that you're able to share with any colleagues who might not have been able to make this morning's webinar. We're delighted that you all have. We've had a really great response, and I think that just reflects the timeliness and the kind of relevance of the particular topic that we're speaking about today. Just for information, there is an option at the bottom of the screen, which you can hopefully all see, where you're able to ask questions. Please bring your questions throughout the session. What we'll do is at the end, bring back all of our speakers and a couple of additional guests to pick up any of those. We often don't get the time, unfortunately, to answer everyone's question, but we'll make sure to come back to you directly if we don't get a chance to pick it up in the session. And we will, a final point, we will be asking for your feedback in the efforts of continuous improvement and evaluation, which is very important to us here at Magic Breakfast. We will send out a brief survey, and we would really appreciate any and all feedback to help us continue to develop and improve these magic mornings. So a very big hello and welcome from me. As I mentioned, my name is Lindsay MacDonald. I am the relatively new CEO here at Magic Breakfast. I joined just at the end of November last year. And it has been an amazing, start, and just the team that's here has been really inspiring, and also getting an opportunity to visit some of our partner schools, meet with our partners as well, and we'll talk a little bit about the impact and the difference that we can make, and that is being made on a day-to-day basis. So my background and why this topic in particular is particularly pertinent and something I'm very passionate about in terms of social mobility and developing a more socially diverse workforce. I've worked in homelessness, in youth unemployment, and absolutely recognize the value and the impact that educational attainment, the small steps towards creating a more inclusive and diverse workforce, how important that is, and also what can happen if we don't take these steps at a really early stage in children's and young people's lives. I think what's incredibly striking about Magic Breakfast is obviously the food aid that we provide with the support of all of our partners, and obviously with the incredible work and efforts of our partner schools who will be joining us in the conversation today. We're able to make sure that on a daily basis children aren't too hungry to learn. And the impact of that daily ensuring that their tummies are full, that they're able to focus in class, that it builds up and contributes to the behavior, the attention, the learning, the opportunity to learn and take advantage of the education that's being provided. What that does is unlocks their future potential, and ultimately unlocks the potential of our economy. I know there are a lot of various businesses and employers on the call today, and I think that's really, it's fantastic, because ultimately, as much as Magic Breakfast, the schools, our partners can work to ensure that we do have a socially diverse, talented, skilled workforce for the future, we also need employers to be, I suppose, pulling and looking to diversify their own workforce. And we have Zach, who's going to be speaking, one of our partners, about how important it is at Kraft Heinz, one of our partners, and obviously a significant employer here. So I think one of the key things and one of the key reasons why education, attainment, and the contribution of a Magic Breakfast at the start of every day is so important is, as I say, it's those building blocks. And one of the things that we have at Magic Breakfast is a really robust evidence base. Our theory of change speaks to that long-term impact of providing breakfast and ultimately that contribution to their life chances. So today, without further ado, we will be considering the impact of breakfast on educational attainment, on the value of social diversity in the workplace, and ultimately why this matters and how Magic Breakfast is playing a part, making, we believe, an important contribution to making all of this happen. And wonderfully, we are joined, as I've mentioned and touched on, by several excellent and far more qualified in their particular areas than I am to speak on this. What we'll do is introduce them in turn. So first, Richard Chatto, who is the principal of Leeds City Academy, a wonderful partner school of ours here at Magic Breakfast, is going to talk to us about the impact of breakfast on educational attainment. So I will send over to you, Richard. Thank you. Oh, Richard, 2022, unfortunately, you're
Oh,
just
there you
on
go.
mute.
Great
That's
start.
all right.
Good introduction as well. So thank you, Lindsay, and good morning, everybody. I think I'd like to start by just saying how absolutely thrilled I am to be invited to attend and contribute to this magic morning. And the most important thing for me to say as the principal of this academy, it's a job that I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of my school and my growing community. I have nothing but huge praise and admiration for the Magic Breakfast programme, and I hope to convey some of my thoughts, the impact, and also the added value that this programme has made to the school as a whole, to individual students, to cohorts of students over the last couple of years that we've been heavily involved in this. I'll try and stick to the 10 minutes. When I'm passionate about something, I can sometimes overspill, so do bear with me, but I'm sure I'll get told off and put on track if I do over 10 minutes. I thought it'd be really useful as a starting point to give you a flavour of the context of the school, because the context of the school and therefore the impact that Magic Breakfast is making or contributing to is really, really important. So if you look first of all on the left-hand side, you can see that our school is significantly growing or has grown over the last few years. So if you look at the bottom, 2017-18, we had 347 students in the school, and we had a reputation that was pretty low at that point, and before that, probably classified as one of the worst schools in Leeds. We had lots and lots of issues to do with attainment, lots of issues to do with behaviour. It wasn't a great place to be. It wasn't a great place to work. The fact that we became a trust, and that brought in a load of changes and improvements, that brought obviously a growing reputation. And you can see now we're currently sat at 878 students, and that's a total growth of 532 students in that period of time. And I'm really pleased to announce that current work going on with the local authority means that in the next 3 years, we're going to grow even further to 1,050. So why is that important? That's important because what we're now doing is providing a greater base, a greater educational experience for more young people in the inner city of Leeds, which is obviously a really important piece of work that we're doing. On the right-hand side, we have over periods of time had a transient nature to our students and families. So we've had families that come into Leeds, stayed for a little while, then gone back out of Leeds. We've had some students that have joined us in year 7 when they're 11 years old, been away for 2 or 3 years and come back again. And that's been the process over the last 4 to 5 years. That is slowing down because we are now getting to a position where we're full. The striking thing about our school is not only are we in a city, but we have 54 different languages spoken. So that doesn't mean that we have to be able to have teachers that can speak 54 different languages, but we need to be very, very good at providing support, a network, and also in terms of good quality teaching for those students. A lot of those students are fluent in English, but a number of those students have varying proficiencies of English. And if you look at the top there, something I've stressed already, we are an inner city school, we have an inner city location, and therefore there are high levels of social and economic deprivation that are a factor that we have to make sure that we are trying to tackle to give those young people in that context the greatest opportunities they have of being most successful. And there's 2 things that I would say as a principal that are absolutely fundamental to the DNA of our school. That is 1, making sure that we can stretch and really, really push students to achieve high academic success, and also become at the same time as that, and that's interwoven within the DNA of our school, is become fantastic young people. And it's a twin track that supports each other, academic success and brilliant young people. Some of that, I know obviously not all of you from an educational background, so there's some acronyms there. I'm not going to go necessarily into all of them, but there's an indication there of some of the factors and the student profiles that we have. So for example, the one at the top is English as an additional language. There are 595 students, or just over 68% of students, that have English as their additional language. And as I said, while there are 54 different languages spoken, some of those are very proficient in English and some are no proficiency at all. GRT is Gypsy Roman Traveller students. So we have a very high percentage of students compared to other schools nationally with that number. We have a number of students, nearly 50% that have free school meals. We have 15% or just over that are special educational needs. We have EHCP, which is a number of students within an educational healthcare plan. Children in care is quite low in our school. And we also have a significant number of pupil premium students, which is just over 50%. In the context nationally, a lot of those statistics are very, very high. So in the context of Leeds, we're very high, but also in the context nationally, we're very high as well. If I then think about explaining to you the culture, and this is why Magic Breakfast fits in so well to the philosophy, the culture, the ethos, and the values of our school. So we have this strap line, and the strap line isn't just a strap line that appears on a wall or a letterhead. Working in partnership to secure the aspirations and ambitions of all young people. And that is a strapline that we have with all of our partners as well. So we're very, very keen on working with people like Magic Breakfast about securing those aspirations and ambitions for all of our young people. And the best way that I can explain this is we have this kind of analogy, which is about a golden triangle. And on the three sides of that triangle, we have the parents and the family, we have the student body, and we have the academy. We call it a golden triangle because essentially, if we all work really, really, really well, then the students get a chance to get a golden key. What does that golden key mean? The golden key means that those students have a greater chance of having higher academic success and developing into fantastic young people, which means when they leave our academy, they've got that ability to transform their own lives, the lives of their family, the lives of their local community, and beyond that. On the right-hand side there, it just emphasizes really some of the stuff that I've just talked about in terms of that golden triangle. It's a very value-driven culture at school. We have very high expectations. Some of our visitors have called us a very warm, strict family ethos throughout the academy. If you visit our academy, you would feel that, you would sense that strictness, but there's a warmth to what we do. And we are obviously, as I mentioned, centered on securing excellence, both academically and for young people. Now, the reason I put the Ofsteds down there is not that I want to showcase how brilliant we are from an Ofsteds perspective. That is a benchmark that we need to try and hit. I want to go beyond Ofsted. I want this school to be the very, very best school it can possibly be. But we need to celebrate our school in terms of the trajectory of improvement, that in May 2019, which was seismic for our school, we received an outstanding, a good grade for Ofsted overall, and outstanding for leadership. What does that say? That says to our families, to our community, we are a place that will nurture your young people. Okay, trust us to develop those young people, both academically and also as people. I thought it'd be useful. I know there's a lot of text on this slide, but I thought it'd be really, really important to stress to you here about how it's an absolutely essential part of our academy day. So if you look on the top there, nutrition before the day. So many of our students, in the background of what I've just said, do not receive breakfast at home. There's no routine. There's no interaction with parents or family. Even those families where they work, the parents have gone out to work before they've left school, or they don't work and they're still in bed. So those students have to be self-sufficient to get themselves onto maybe 2 buses to get to school. There isn't a routine. Because of the focus in the morning, that has seen a definite increase of our attendance at school and good punctuality, because they know they're going to get their breakfast, because they know there's going to be a family reception for them, because they know they're going to meet their peers, because they know they're going to get support from adults, and an adult that's going to be a regular, reliable adult, the students will attend school and be punctual. It ensures they're awake, they're energized through the food and drink they have, and therefore they're able to focus and concentrate in lessons, and that secures a very calm and ordered start to the day. One thing that should not be underestimated is what Magic Breakfast has brought and encouraged and supported the school with. That is the establishment of new friends. As I said, we've had a transient nature of students over the last few years. And while that is slowing down, we've had a number of students joining us at different times. Magic Breakfast provides a forum for students to meet new people, to be introduced to new people, to connect with new students that might be from different families, different international places within the world, and some of those from very, very, very difficult and challenging circumstances. Again, as I said, they included the most vulnerable. It enables conversation. They even support. So this morning, I've gone down this morning, a student having their breakfast, and they're doing their knowledge organisers, their revision, their recap together, not with direction, but just doing it because they want to do that together. And obviously that interaction, we sometimes have board games that take place. And obviously from their own freedom point of view, they talk and they socialise. Also, support-wise, it establishes a consistent time for students in the morning, including the most vulnerable students, to feel safe, to feel secure, and to be supported through that consistency of environment, adults, friends, and that advice and support they might get. That isn't necessarily teacher formal, but it might be that really soft, the kind of relationship they have with people. I thought it was really good. I mean, ideally, it would have been lovely to have 5 or 6 students that have been sat with me, and you could have seen those students and you could have heard from those students, and also staff. But what I've just done is I've just captured a small number of quotes here that we've collected about Magic Breakfast. So I'll just give you 30 seconds or so just to read those, and I'm just going to emphasize 1 or 2. I think the thing that I would like to stress here is that statement, an absolutely essential part of the Academy Day. It's without question, it's absolutely essential in terms of all those building blocks of what we do at school. This sits centrally as an important piece of what we do. And it not only supports what we do, it enhances what we do. And obviously we can build upon that as well. And I'll touch on something a little bit later towards the end of the presentation that really emphasizes that. I want to pick up on just a couple of things here. I think all of these will make you smile, but I like the top middle one. I've met lots of new friends, which help me settle in and feel at home. I love Magic Breakfast. I can meet friends and spend time working and revising. The bottom left-hand one talks about the member of staff. I've served students, so the staff serve students every day, and it gives me a chance to get to know, to chat and support those students. The bottom right-hand corner, that's come from a number of students. I've met lots of older students who I now really look up to and ask advice about my work and aspiring to be my best. Aspiration is one of our core values that you'll see at the bottom of the slide. And older students, role modeling to younger students, being there as a natural person to go to is something that has come and been accelerated by the fact that we've got Magic Breakfast. The final thing I'd like to leave you with is some additional impact. So our attendance is 5% above national average. Now, in the context of the school that we have and the nature of the students that we have, that's pretty remarkable. It's not where we want it to be. We want it to be 100%. It's not 100%. But even through COVID issues that we've had and getting back into the swing of things, we are currently sitting at 5% above national average. And I can't quantify by saying Magic Breakfast made a 10% impact on that. But there's no doubt the fact that those students got somewhere safe to be, that's calm, that's supportive, where they've got nutrition, they've got that family feel. There's no doubt that makes a massive impact to that attendance. It ensures a calm start to the day, which encourages excellent behaviour from the start of the day. And it means that students can concentrate from minute 1. 8:30, they're in lessons, they can concentrate and they can sustain that focus through the morning and afternoon because they've got that nutrition. Obviously, again, I can't quantify, but there's absolutely no doubt the fact that if students are here, if they can concentrate, if they can sustain that concentration, that is going to improve the quality of the work, the progress they make, and their attainment. Again, I mentioned to you already, it supports personal development and that caring ethos that we have at our school. And again, you'll look at the bottom, our values, one of our values is caring. And that kind of natural relationship that we have with our students, staff to staff, student to students, older students to younger students, new students to older students, it supports that real caring ethos. The little additional added value I'd add to this is we've obviously done some work with Magic Breakfast, and we've attended things like this in the past where we've celebrated together. A little spin-off that's really helped us is we've now established a partnership with Heinz where we've got some of the Heinz professionals mentoring some of our highly aspirational young women from ages year 7 all the way through to year 11. So we have now a bespoke program. We've got Heinz professionals, female professionals that have made a really good career, really inspiring some of our younger students. So that's just a wonderful thing. That's a real added value to this partnership. And when I go back to working in partnership, to raise those aspirations, ambitions of all our young people, that's another little example of how we're building things with our key partner. And as I mentioned to you there, it's about that aspirations of young people. I'll leave you with the following kind of quote that I made yesterday before I sent this presentation through. And I'll leave you with that, and then obviously hand over to Lindsay again after about 20 seconds or so.
Thank you so much, Richard. And to be honest, I mean, I'm barely needed, because that was a wonderful segue to our next speaker. And I think, you know, that idea of the golden key, you know, sounds fantastic. And, you know, just thinking about Magic Breakfast's work on a daily basis, we support approximately 215,000 children and young people to access that type of breakfast provision on a daily basis. So hopefully that's a lot of golden keys, which help them unlock and move into, you know, wonderful, welcoming and inclusive places to work. And with that, I'm going to introduce Zach Khan, who is General Counsel for Northern Europe at the Kraft Heinz Company, a wonderful, long-standing supporter and partner of Magic Breakfast, and obviously one of our partner schools as well. So again, I will now hand over to Zach. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lindsay, and thank you very much, Richard. It's always inspiring to hear the school's perspective, and we're thrilled to be partnering not only with Magic Breakfast but Leeds Academy on some of the initiatives. And what I would like to talk to the team, the group today about is how, you know, there's two aspects to this, you know, in terms of building a fairer society and a more productive workforce. You have to look at the education aspects, but then also the employment aspects. I mean, I think there's always a two-pronged approach to this. But I mean, the way I like to look at every social issue is to answer three questions. You know, why is it important? What is it that we want to achieve? And then how are we going to get there? And I'm going to sort of structure my session accordingly. And I think the fundamental question is, you know, why does a diverse workforce matter? And I think, you know, there is certainly the social and moral aspect of this is pretty clear. I mean, we know that having a diverse society, a fairer society, and equal society leads to better social cohesion, more belonging, and everyone wants to live in a world where everyone can prosper. But what we need to understand is that there are roles that we play as companies, and we need to understand that it doesn't quite work with just having an aspiration, like a kind of a social cause. You need to have a better understanding of why actually does a diverse workforce create positive impact within society and within a company. And so what I wanted to focus on, to start off with sort of the business side of things, you know, why is it that having a diverse workforce leads to better business? And actually, I wanted to draw on one of our values, key values as a company, which is we demand diversity. And you'll notice that we don't ask for it, we don't request it, we demand it. And our CEO has spoken quite candidly about this topic, that the reason why we demand it is because it does lead to a stronger company. It leads to a more interesting company, but more importantly, it leads to a more innovative company. And there's actually quite a lot of studies on this that I wanted to kind of call on. A few years ago, BCG, Boston Consulting, did a study that companies that had a more socially diverse workforce had generated revenues which were 19% higher than those that didn't. And that is primarily due to the fact that they looked at the innovation that these companies had. Then you've got to kind of take a step back and say, why is it that diverse workforces lead to better innovation and better revenues? And it goes back to the point of having come from different backgrounds, whether it's ethnicities, whether it's socioeconomic backgrounds, gender, you have a different view of the world, and you are reflective of the consumers of the world. And therefore, your ability to think differently and lead to better decisions, richer ideas, more innovative ideas becomes all the more possible. And so from that perspective, we really believe that diversity of our workforce, it has a real business advantage. And then going beyond that, we have a role as a company to build a better society. I think that's one thing that is very close to my heart. I think many companies traditionally, or at least perception, might be to generate the most profit as possible. But I think that comes with a level of responsibility. And Heinz has been, over the last few years particularly, really sort of pushing this agenda of we need to give back and build a fairer society for all. And we've done some studies around this. There was a report that we did in conjunction with Pro Bono Economics not long ago, which was linked to some of the kind of the things we want to drive with Magic Breakfast around why is it good for government to support children through the system. And the reason for that is because it does lead to less economic dependency and social dependency, which is important for these children that are coming through the amazing school academy, that they can go on to live to be self-sufficient and break out of this cycle of deprivation, which unfortunately still exists in our society. And so look, that gives you a sort of a backdrop to why diversity in the workforce really matters. So what are we going to do about it? What do we want to achieve? And Heinz has made a commitment, an aspiration. And the aspiration is that by 2025, we would like, from a gender perspective, to have 50% of our management as females. And then from an ethnic minority background perspective, to have 21% of our workforce from those backgrounds. And when we think about, we talk about the topic of intersectionality. Now, we know from data that those from ethnic minority backgrounds tend to come from the less advantaged aspects of society. And so what we can do by sort of holding ourselves accountable to some of these aspirations is really start to shift the dynamic of our workforce so that we are truly inclusive. We are truly supporting those that really need our support, and aspirationally to build a society that doesn't have as much inequality as it does right now. If I go to the next slide, and I wanted to focus quite a bit on this one because I think I think it's clear the business case is strong to build a more diverse workforce, and we can set ourselves aspirational targets, but it all comes with action. And we've thought long and hard about this. When we started off, and I think it's worth sort of talking a bit about the amazing partnership we have had with Magic Breakfast, and I'll also come on to talk about Leicester Academy because I think it's very relevant. When we started off the partnership with Magic Breakfast, it was very much about, okay, how can we help as a company? We make wonderful food products, beans, soups, tomato ketchup, and we knew that that would be a way that we can very physically provide food to schools to fuel the learning, and we know that fueling the learning of our children will certainly lead to better educational attainment and in turn lead to better opportunities. And we've done work on that front in terms of supporting the education side of things. So, food provision, mentorship, as Richard pointed out there, providing mentorship to the children at a very young age gives them something to fight for, gives them outlets to really be inspired to achieve more. And then we've got the work experience, kind of at the education level, there is a work experience aspect of that as well. But where you need to, what we found is that happens already, but what we also need to do on the employment side, and certainly those that have already gone through the system, there is still there is still a lot of inequality when it comes to accessibility to those employers, and that can be down to a number of things. Some of them are systemic. So as an example, many companies still have sort of prerequisites on entry requirements. You have to have certain, you have to come from certain universities, certain grades, certain certain routes to the role, and that's something that we are now trying to evolve in terms of how we support children, the Magic Breakfast children particularly, through the schools, through the education side, in partnership with the amazing schools that we have. And then on the employment side, the first thing that we would like to do is, this is something that we've done more recently, is for all general hires, we have dropped all the requirements for certain universities. So for example, you now can come from any university. We have sort of an open policy on that. Also degrees, we don't require a degree to work at Heinz anymore, which I think in turn creates a much more accessible environment for those children who have gone through the system but who haven't been able to go get a degree due to their background, or due to their the opportunity that they had available to them, or even the money, because nowadays it does cost to go through the education system. And so the first thing is accessibility. The second thing, what we've done is at internship and trainee level, we have not only dropped the requirement of a degree, but we are also looking at what even the grades that individuals are getting. So sometimes, if you've gone through the system and you've not had the support, you may not have had the support needed to get the grades and to get into certain employers. And so we've now taken a bit of a view on that. And then the other thing that we're super proud of, and this has been due to the amazing partnership with Magic Breakfast, is we've launched this year the apprenticeship program, which will kick off in September. And we'll have there'll be three children, employees that will join us, who will come from disadvantaged backgrounds. And this will be a 3-year program where the opportunities and learnings of working with an employer, there will be a rotation. And the real dream will be to have them be a pipeline for some of our permanent roles in the future. And some of us at Heinz nudge each other and say, look, wouldn't it be amazing that our future CEO of UK was someone who went through the apprenticeship program? And setting ourselves those types of aspirational targets really does motivate not only us, as a company, but it also motivates our employees. And that's something I wanted to draw on, was particularly we're seeing a lot amongst our millennials, which is going to make up 75% of the workforce in a few years' time. Nearly 50% of millennials want to work in a more socially diverse company. So it's also incredibly important for the talent that we want to have in our company. And certainly from an engagement side, it's been very, very, very powerful as well. And then the final aspect on how we're going to get there is we need to improve the way that we recruit. And the main area that we're focusing on is ensuring that we have a great pool of candidates from different backgrounds. We found that certain recruiters will have candidates on their books, but they are those that have gone to the top universities, who have come from very privileged backgrounds. That tends to be the way that things have evolved. But we've partnered with SEO London, and I encourage those employed on the call to I mean, we've worked with them for the last year or so to really look at giving us a pool of candidates from very different backgrounds, whether it's from different ethnicities, whether it's from different socioeconomic backgrounds, so that we can have a bigger pool of candidates that go through the system. And with the training that we're doing with our managers on biases, we also have our own biases in recruitment. That way we can have more employees that more diverse employees that join our business, and ultimately not only build a fairer society, but make a stronger company. And as I mentioned to you before, there are real economic business reasons for doing this. So there's a whistle stop. I'm very open to answering questions. I want to thank again the Magic Breakfast, the whole charity, really, all the way from Lindsay to all the members of the charity that we work with regularly, for being such a great part. Just so excited about not only where we've come from, but where we're going to get to with this a lot of the new initiatives that we're driving, and also very, very happy to be partnering with Richard and Lead City Academy. We're hoping to keep the mentorship and work experience program going. We really believe that's going to be the way to really break the cycle and really support these children that have come from less privileged backgrounds. But thank you, Lindsay. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Zach. And I think the appreciation and gratitude is very much reciprocated and mutual. And I think we've had a great opportunity now this morning to hear about the impact on children and young people's education, their learning, how that unlocks the future, the business and the opportunities that the business case, and the opportunities that employers can unlock by having a more socially diverse workforce. And I really love, Zach, how you also picked up on the practical aspects of what you're doing in the company to make this a reality. And it's not targets or aspirations without a plan. And I think bringing it to that practical piece, again, a nice segue is an opportunity to introduce one of the brilliant people here at Magic Breakfast, Emma McLeod. She is a school partner in the Northeast, and she is going to share with us a bit about, I guess, that day-to-day work that's being done, how that impact is made on a day-to-day basis. So Emma, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone. So I'll be honest, the biggest problem that we're going to have with this is keeping it to 10 minutes. We're very passionate as school partners and working forward with this. We've got so much to cover, so I hope I do justice to all the school partners at Magic Breakfast. So a little bit of background about myself. I came from a deprived community and did my higher education much later in life. My background is in health psychology. I also was a chair of governors at a school for 4 years, but a governor for 7 years. And I also worked in a behaviour unit in a secondary school. In both of these placements, I quickly realised that there are much wider problems outside of the classroom that education needed to handle as well. I joined Magic Breakfast because the core ethos of No Child Too Hungry to Learn really aligned with my own thoughts, and obviously with what I'd gone through as a governor and in a school. It was something that I was very passionate about. So obviously, as a school partner, we tried to provide support to all schools, primary, secondary, all through SEN, PRUs, a whole range of schools throughout England and Scotland, to provide a barrier-free fuel for learning and obviously stigma-free for the children that we support. So obviously, we do a huge school journey with our schools, and we start to build the relationship through recruitment. So here we talk about all the challenges that schools face to try and get a real understanding of how, of anything that may impact children's learning, and obviously where we can help overcome that with feeding children. So we'll look at lots of different things, such as obviously your pupil premium, which are something that's always categorised, but above that as well. So the rest of the community, do you have any staff challenges? What about just about managing families, those that aren't hitting that pupil premium criteria but actually could be suffering just as much? Then we want to always address the schools, what they're proud of, where their pride comes, so that we know where we can work along, and then look at their current breakfast offerings, see if it's hunger focused, where we need to improve, or if we need to start something from scratch. So we discuss the offer with them and how we're there to help the community. But obviously with us, we're very passionate and we understand the importance of it, but we've got some research there to back it up. So key findings of the Education Endowment Foundation in 2016 showed that Year 2 children attending schools with a breakfast club experience the equivalent of 2 months additional attainment in reading, writing and maths. So there's some great research there that backs that up. It also, obviously, as Richard has said, it helps with behaviour and concentration and improved attendance. And then Leeds University in 2019 published a report, some research that said that a lack of breakfast correlates with lower GCSE attainment. And, you know, with us, we're also always going to talk about that lovely nurturing environment where it breaks down barriers. And like Richard had said again, it builds the relationships between staff and other pupils as well. So during this meeting, we really listen and get a great feel for the community and the schools with their unique personal issues to devise an active plan moving forward, so we can go into a great partnership with the schools. So we have lots of different ways that we deliver breakfast to our schools, above and beyond just a general breakfast club. Most people use these as somewhere where it's used for childcare. So we want to extend that if that's what they do have, or use a 2-track. So one of our schools in Newcastle really didn't want to break away from that early morning childcare. So they do a 2-track where they charge for very early mornings, so 7:30 in the morning, but then from 8:15, the whole school can come in. All the staff go into the hall. They do an absolutely wonderful job. It's really engaging to be in there. And, you know, they're picking up everybody. We also encourage a nurture breakfast. I think that's really nice. It's a positive way to obviously have something there for those with confidence issues, your SEMH, or anybody that might have an educational healthcare plan that needs that extra support in the morning. Booster breakfast is another wonderful one. Playground breakfast. So one school in Middlesbrough are fantastic. They do a breakfast bagels for everybody, and it's the inclusion manager that goes out onto the playground every day, welcomes the children in, offers everybody a bagel, and it really breaks down them barriers, and has also created such a great way for their school to develop that parental engagement. Classroom breakfast is something that we love. Obviously, it's often classroom bagels, but we have some amazing examples that we can use. So there's a wonderful school up in Sunderland who do classroom breakfast for everybody, and it is the full offer, so cereals, bagels, beans, with the occasional treat for extras, such as what they will be sharing with us later on this week for our big breakfast. Excuse me. So then we do have a launch meeting. So this is where they have made their decision of how they're going to move forward and what sort of provision that they're going to do. So we look at the finer details of the provision. And because we've already discussed what they could potentially do to do an extended reach and offered them some ways around it, such as the schools that we've talked about and how it really truly helps them, normally they've got a great idea. So some of the issues that are then thrown at us are some things such as staffing. So staffing, obviously, sometimes there's a lack of will from the staff within the Breakfast Club, but we always need to look at, you know, flexing hours. There's a wonderful school in Darlington that have 3 TAs and they flex their hours so that they start earlier in the morning. They can have a huge breakfast club that's free to all children, and the staff leave earlier on an evening to go home with their children. The staff really enjoy it, and it allows 90 children to attend their breakfast every single morning. Also, we want value for money. So if we have a breakfast club that has 30 spaces available, but we're only taking up 10, we really want to see that value for money in there. So we push for them to, you know, add a lot more free places into there to make sure that we're getting the best that we can from paying for the staff that are doing it, or obviously where we flex our hours, because we will be losing them at the end of the day. We want to make sure that schools understand that we have an awareness of the huge pressures that they have, because breakfast is a very small part of the school day, and there's a lot of other things that the staff need to do outside of breakfast. So we're very grateful, but we want to hit a lot of things. So we also talk about obviously food orders and how tricky that will be, and make sure that we've got something that's good for them to start off with, so it's not too much of a low order. That's something that we really worry about. We don't want them to go, okay, we're going to try and do an extended reach and feed everybody, but then not have enough food there. So we talk around that, and we can quickly get things in place. We check in with them after the breakfast has been delivered to check that this is the right amount, and change it as quickly as needed. We also talk about the distribution and the storage of all the food, where it's going to go, and advertising. We also do breakfast visits. Now, these are the great bit, that it's my favourite part. We get to see the children and make sure that everything is grounded in the eye of the child. So we are here to offer advice and help and support, but make sure that we are building a relationship so that staff are fully engaged and on board, because we are here for the children, but we need to have a school that's, you know, understanding and as excited and passionate about breakfast as we are. So obviously my favourite part is meeting the children, and I'll always discuss with them about breakfast and how it can be improved, where it could be improved, and what would be nice for them. I went to a wonderful school in Middlesbrough who I was speaking to some of the children first thing while they were eating, and they were having a great time, asked them how it could be improved. There were games all over, and they said, well, not really anywhere. Now it's time for dancing. Dragged me up and taught me their new moves that they had done to some amazing songs that was blasted out of a boombox. So it was a really, really nice way to do it. But again, this breakfast club, when I was speaking to the staff after, it only had 15 children in. Now, this is a bit of a side effect from COVID. And I said, you know, you want value for money. So get more children in, offer them more free places so that we know that it's a real, true hunger-focused breakfast. They do also do an extended reach, so all the children could then access food in the classroom as well. The timing is obviously important too. We need to make sure that this is the first thing in the morning, and location. So I have an amazing school in, they're in Stockton, who are a secondary school, and they have food in their canteen. Now, where the children come in through the main entrance, they go straight past the canteen. So they thought that they were doing the best thing. Now, obviously, as an outsider, I'm there to evaluate and to see where we can improve it. But children were walking past but not engaging with breakfast. So I asked them if they could move, they have like big catering trays that they put their food on, if they can move it forward, because actually the children walk through and past, would have to make a slight diversion, and in a senior school this is quite prominent. So they moved the food forward, so the children would literally walk through 2 trays of food, and now they have a huge uptake, and they're feeding, especially for a senior school, they're feeding about 60% of their children, which is huge. It's also having it in different areas. So Grab and Go was another school up in Sunderland. They have it on different entrance points around schools so that children can come in the morning, take something, and then go back out and eat it on the playground. Obviously, we look at the age of children, our nursery attending. So Durham couldn't pay for their staff, for enough staff to cover nursery. So the nursery start a little bit earlier, and then they started using their staffing in the nursery just to make sure that those children got that as well. Now, one of the things that we do like is obviously a lates as well. We like to see late provision because for us, these are the children that could potentially be missed if they're coming in the morning. Obviously, as a school partner, when I went in, I was watching. One of my schools were doing fantastic. They were so proud of everything, and we weren't able to use a room to do our meeting after the breakfast visit. So they were quite happy for me to be in reception and to discuss everything, because they were very proud, and rightly so. They also do a late provision, so it was really nice to see this in action. So one young child came in with mum, and the reception had said, "Have you had breakfast this morning?" Now, obviously, as an outsider, really trying to evaluate and be observant, the child looked up to parent and said yes, and walked in. So I asked if that could be reframed, because that again can be a bit of a barrier and stigma. So when that child was then gone into classroom, I asked if they would be offered something again, and the answer was not really, because they'd been offered it at reception. So they spoke to that child, and actually she was hungry and she did take something. And I said, if we reframe that question and just say, would you like a bagel, or do it away from parents, then the child is not going to feel the pressure or the pride possibly of the parent and not say no. So there's lots of things that we do. There's lots of ways that we try and help and support. But obviously our key thing is building the relationship with the school so that we can push them forward in a very positive manner. making sure that we've got them on board, but they understand our passion for hungry children, and that there's lots of ways that we can get this food to them in different sort of ways. I've tried to get it together. I've tried to do it in 10 minutes, but thanks for listening. And obviously this is a very small snapshot of our role and what we do and how we try to push things forward. It's a very rewarding job that all school partners will obviously, and the rest of the Magic Breakfast staff will say, but you know, it's nice to reflect on how many children we're feeding. As Lindsay had said before, over 200,000 children are getting a breakfast every day, and we're helping to provide that hunger focused breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for all of that wonderful insight. And I think what's really rich from what you were sharing is those different local communities. And I think that ties in with what Richard highlighted as well. There's a real need. And I think, you know, my experience certainly so far since joining Magic Breakfast is that's where the real power and the impact of the Magic Breakfast model comes into play, is the fact that you do engage with and you understand and approach, you know, this national crisis of child morning hunger with a really local solution focused, you know, method and ways of working, but I suppose then powered by the wonderful global partners and supporters that we have. So thank you. I'm mindful of the questions that are coming in thick and fast at the moment in the Q&A. The first question, I'm going to bring in Zach again, and just asking you, Zach, a couple of questions here, if we could maybe tie them together in terms of how do you feel that Magic Breakfast core work, feeding hungry children, can support your diversity targets, and also drawing out, I suppose, maybe the challenges that you had to overcome to achieve this.
Sure, good questions. And I think just to pick up on the first aspect of the question, which was how does Magic Breakfast core work of feeding children support, how could it support our targets? And I think it already is, right? I mean, if I think about the food provision program is so critical at the starting point of the journey. I will talk about it in a kind of life cycle journey, because I think it's important that we always think of children as, you know, it's not just whilst they're in the schooling system, it has to continue. And the food provision can't be more important. We've talked about, you know, how it increases concentration levels and it leads to better educational attainment. But I think the one area that we are starting to do much more with Magic Breakfast and also the schools is a more holistic approach to development of the children. So when it comes to mentoring and work experience, and Magic Breakfast is already supporting us on giving us the access to the schools to enable these programs to, you know, to get the traction that they need. And in one area I think we will continue to want to work with Magic Breakfast is this kind of longer term approach. When a Magic Breakfast child leaves the school, how do we stay close to that child so that those children who have gone through the Magic Breakfast schools can be sort of access points for us for apprenticeship programs, internships and trainee programs. So that's something that, you know, it'd be great to keep working with Magic Breakfast to ensure that we don't just stop at the one stage, we continue all the way through the journey. And as I said, you know, if we can have the next CEO or future CEO of Heinz having come from a Magic Breakfast school, that would be an absolutely amazing achievement. So I think that's where we can get to. And just in terms of the challenging aspect of increasing the business's focus on social mobility, I have to say, I mean, one of the reasons I love working at Heinz is that we're constantly challenging ourselves to be better. So it was not as difficult as perhaps you might think it would be for a big corporate to support some of these programs. We may have perceived it to be, and you know, I think Nat Greenwald, who's my partner in crime in driving this, is a key part of the Heinz Magic Breakfast partnership. We almost you know, overestimated how difficult it would be to get the traction within the company. But one area that I think is important for us to understand is, as a company, we very much pride meritocracy. So meritocracy is, you know, I think it's a very interesting topic in and of itself, because what is truly meritocratic might be for one person different from another, but we don't live in a meritocratic system. So having these conversations with leadership around, yes, when we're going to increase the diversity of our workforce, we will have to make choices. But let's remember, we don't have to fundamentally compromise a meritocracy. Let's remember why we're doing this. We're doing this because we know that having a diverse workforce leads to more creative thinking, and we don't want clones of ourselves. I mean, that's the biggest issue. We know as a corporate, we have made that mistake before. We've tended to hire mirror images of ourselves, and that doesn't lead to more diverse thinking, better creativity, and ultimately better business results. So keep having those conversations with your companies about that. And I think it's a challenge, but can easily be overcome. There's lots of more interesting data to support that as well. But thank you for the questions.
Thanks, Zach. And I think coming off the back of 2 days of away day here at Magic Breakfast, where we brought all of our team together for the first time since before the pandemic, I completely agree that ability to bring lots of minds into the room, that diversity, that almost, I suppose just Medici effect of bringing different people and different backgrounds and experiences together always creates better results. Thank you for sharing that. And I suppose to bring it now to kind of the school perspective, a couple of questions here, which I'll come to Richard first and then to Emma. What more can other supporters or members of the business community do to support Magic Breakfast and to support schools to add value in breakfast clubs, breakfast provision in the same way that Heinz do? So I've combined, I think, 3 questions in that one question. I'll come to you, Richard, and then over to you, Emma.
Okay, to summarize, I think we've heard the word partnership quite a lot through the different presentations, including my own. And I think the one thing that I've learned over time is that don't approach this in what I call a Disney Day effect, where if you throw loads of resources at one-offs, that'll have a nice Disney Day effect for a one-off. What you've got to do is you've got to build and sustain a relationship and a partnership. And that's certainly what we're seeing through the work we've done with Magic Breakfast and Heinz, is certainly that. And it's about building that. And that's the only way that you are going to either support and enhance what's already taking place. So I would say as a starting point, work with a small number of schools or an individual school or an academy's trust, for example, and build that relationship with those particular schools that will have a lasting effect and impact. That doesn't matter whether you go from year 7 through to year 11 and beyond, but the next conveyor belt through of year 7s coming into my secondary school have a similar model. Now, one great example of that is we've done loads and loads of work from a careers perspective at our school, and it's an outstanding piece of work that we've done across the school. So weaving into the curriculum from year 7 through to year 11 in our school, the skills, the knowledge, the attributes that you need in order to be ultimately successful. Now, that has a reality and it has a tangible relationship with Heinz, Magic Breakfast, or different companies. That is how you're going to really develop the workforce, but also get those students heavily involved. So I'm not dismissing that Disney Days are not important, but Disney Days have got to be part of a strategic focus that you have with a school or a series of schools. But just to give you a couple of tangible things that Zach's reinforced as well, and it's music to my ears, is that we've got, you can enrich the curriculum, you can go beyond the curriculum after school for activities, mentoring is a definite thing, and then creating opportunities for pathways for students to follow through and beyond that curriculum is what for schools will make a massive impact, but then will also make a massive impact for the community and society when those students leave.
Yeah, I definitely think obviously what Richard and Zach have said have been really, really important. So I'll go from more of a primary perspective, obviously looking at schools' improvement plans and try to, again, like Richard has said, work with a group of schools that have similar improvement plans. We've had things like the Marcus Rashford Book Club, which was amazing. That was a great partnership, but something that's a bit more in school for helping grow breakfast clubs with more of an identified objective towards them, and nurturing, especially with primary schools, nurturing is very important. And with mental health and wellbeing at the moment, excuse me, being, highlighted by governments, if we could work with some people that could go in and actually make that a really nice, nurturing environment that has some objectives to it, so that it's not just children coming in and doing it their way.
Wonderful, thank you both. And I'm mindful of time, so I will just try and sum up. First of all, a huge thank you to our speakers this morning. I think you brought a real richness and insight to the opportunities, the potential, the business case for creating a more socially diverse workforce. And hopefully you've also had an opportunity to hear and understand how Magic Breakfast can and would love to work alongside partners and schools to make sure that we are part of creating that workforce of the future as well. Creating those future CEOs, which I think is a fantastic vision and absolutely an achievable one if we work together. A reminder before you log off that there will be an opportunity to feedback your thoughts, your reflections, your feedback in the survey, and we will also send out a note just if you had any follow-up questions or if you wanted to understand more about how you can get involved. I think what's really core to us at Magic Breakfast, and I think it's come out in several of the mentions and talks, is that we do work in partnership, we do collaborate, and we look to unlock what makes a really successful positive experience for all of the partners and individuals, and particularly the children and young people involved. So a very big thank you from me, from all of us at Magic Breakfast. A thank you and a shout out to the team behind the scenes who have made sure the tech has cooperated, and wishing you all a very wonderful and magical day. Thank you so much.